Hi guys, it's Carl from Monkee Mods. So in this video, I will show you how I assemble the Monkee Mods Firefly. Now, being a hobby kid, there's obviously more than one way to assemble this blaster, so I'll show you mine. Now, let's just get all the stuff out of the box. So this is the sleeve. Just slide it off. And the box. So you find most of the stuff in there. There's a pack of the internal parts and also palm grips, and then some shells, the plunger tube, this is the barrel and the magazine tube, and the shells, both left, right, and then the priming bar, and also the magazine tube follower spring in there. This is the follower spring that goes into the magazine tube. Right, the priming bar. And before you assemble, make sure to inspect both sides of the receiver shell. Make sure there is no visible damage. Right, so this is the barrel. And this is the magazine tube. So if you own the previous Colonel Wasp Firefly before, you'll notice that this is one of the problematic parts along with the breech or barrel adapter, because this is where you insert the barrel and also the magazine tube. So on the newer version on the Monkee Mods Firefly, you'll see the magazine tube has a recessed part on one of the one side of the magazine tube, because this part is allow you to insert to the breech adapter easier and without actually cracking this part. But because of this, some sort of adhesive is necessary now, some sort of a glue. So for me, I'll be using this Uhu glue. They are easily available and it works pretty well for the purpose. And in case you need to remove them, it's pretty doable. Unlike if you use AB epoxy, it's probably permanent. So yeah, I do recommend using Uhu glue. Right, and then this is the plunger tube. Right, again, make sure there's no there's no damage on this thing. Make sure there's no dent. Alright, and this pack, let's get it out. Alright, so you should get two springs. One of them is 5 kilo, one of them is a 12 kilo. So whichever that you would like them in your Firefly. And this is the shell lifter. And this is the part where it allows the shell going out or stop the shell from going out unintentionally. And this is the breech. This obviously is the barrel and the magazine tube adapter part. Left and right side of the palm grip. And the plunger rod. The trigger. This is the pack of a screw for the receivers. Two O-rings for the plunger rod and also the breech. The catch. And this is the magazine tube follower. This is the gasket for the barrel. And this is the catch, leaf spring for the catch. This is the trigger spring. Yeah, this is actually part of the follower. And this is the bridge seal. You have to use some glue and then attach it into the bridge, like so. The extractor, shell extractor. Shell lifter spring. And this is the extractor spring. Ooh. Oh, I have a very bad camera. I'm sorry about that. Right, and that is all the part. So let me just sort it up a bit, and then we're beginning the assembly process. Alright, first step, I would be dealing with the barrel first because they require glue. And glue usually takes a couple of hours to cure. So this is what I will start first. So grab the rubber gasket for the barrel, and then the bridge and barrel adapter piece. So on the barrel side, this is where the gasket attach onto. So it goes on to the barrel like so. Right, so and because this part is one of the part that where it always comes loose during operations when you use the blaster, during the pump action to be more specific. So I would recommend dabbing a little bit of a glue on the gasket and just make sure that the barrel and the gasket is glued together properly. So as usual, I'll be using the UV glue. Right, you don't really need too much. I probably put too much already, but right, so just carefully, just make sure both of the rubber gasket and the barrel is clean so the adhesive can work its way. Right, it should look like this when the glue is applied. Right, and then we just leave this thing to sit there for a couple of hours. Right, as for the magazine tube, so this part that will be going into the barrel and the magazine tube adapter, like so. So as you can see, because of the thinner part here, now it has a rather loose fit. Because of that, this part will no longer crack. Right, so again, glue is needed. Right, just make sure it's all the way in. And then again, I will be leaving this sitting there for a couple of hours for the glue to fully cure. Alright, a quick tips. We have received a lot of complaints, I suppose, that where their Firefly are not able to pull the shells out and extract it out. So I'm going to give you a quick explanations and why this happens. So this is the old barrel magazine tube adapter. Doesn't matter, they are the exact same thing, just in different color. So see, this is a shell, and this is where the shell gets shoved into, right? But as you can see, I can actually push the shell all the way in, as there's nothing here actively trying to stop this shell from going in too much. So this is where your barrel goes in, along with the rubber gasket. So you can see the positions of the barrel are most important. Why? Because that is the only thing that actually stops the shell from being over pushed. So when the barrel is set in all the way, excuse me, right, all the way in, it will limit the shell movement to around here, right? And if you take a look on this side, this notch here is where your extractor sits in, like so. So imagine if your barrel goes out of the place That means it's coming out already. It means this shell can actually go in more than it should. And when that happens, your extractor will not be able to hook onto the lips of the shell. Right? So suppose you are the shell should go in maybe something like this, and then when you shove your pump grip, the extractor will goes over the lips and then hooked on it, like so. Oh, my camera is not focusing. Yeah. Right. So and then when you pull the pump grip, it will pull the shell out together. But what happens is when your barrel goes up the way, the shell got shoved in too much, and this is what happened. Your extractor just cannot pull it out. You see? Oh my God, it's not focusing. Please focus. Yeah. So that's why this is the main reason why your Firefly will not are not able to extract the shell. So just make sure the barrel is fully inserted all the way in, and then this should go away. This problem should go away. Now we'll assemble the plunger tubes. The assembly, if you call it, if you can call it one. So we'll use the plunger tube, the plunger rod, the bridge, the two O-rings, and the bridge seal. So again, let's start with the glue part first. Make sure the bridge seal is alright, there's no tear or anything, no damage. And this is the part where it goes inside to the bridge. Right, this part. And this round part faces outwards. So it goes in like this. Right, and because this friction fit alone is not secure enough that it will stay there properly, so as usual, we'll be using some Woohoo glue. Right, make sure it's seated all the way in. And if you want to check, you can grab one of the shell. You see this part here, the recessed part. This is where the seals goes into, like so. So the shell should stay there, right? Right now, grab the bridge. So this part is where the O-ring sits in. So these two O-ring is exactly the same, so either one will work. Now before you attempt to install the O-ring, make sure that there's no excessive burrs that will potentially cut or damage the O-rings. If there is, you can use sandpaper or a very light file just to give it a light brush so that it's smooth. But mine is fine, so yeah. So before you install the O-ring, remember to use silicone-based lubrications. Right, so grab one of the O-rings. Make sure the O-ring is moderately looped as well, because otherwise then you will have problem inserting it. Alright, just leave it aside first. So let's take a look at the plunger rod itself. Right, so I can spot some burrs on my plunger rod, so let me just give it a light brush with my sanding, what's this thing called? Sanding sponge, I guess. Alright, just a quick cleanup. This step is not really necessary, but I just love it clean, so that's why I do it. And I hope that this will also reduce the chances of the O-ring being damaged prematurely. So yeah, just make sure that it's clean. Right, and then, oh yeah, again, before you install the O-ring, remember to lube it. Right, the O-ring. Right, when you see this, this is normal and it's actually intended. don't be worried because the O-ring is not that is too big or too wide or whatever. This is actually intended so that you will have a lesser friction fit within the plunger tube later when it's in operation. So just make sure that the O-ring is moderately looped. Now grab the plunger tube again. Make sure to loop it moderately. Now I want to point out, if your plunger tube, if this part, this opening part is a bit too sharp or there's burr, remember to sand it smooth as well. It will help when you're trying to insert the plunger rod or the bridge later. But mine seems not too bad, but I'll give it a light brush anyway. Alright, again, this step is not necessary. I just do it because I don't want any chances of my O-ring getting damaged when I try to insert the plunger rod or the bridge in. So just try to smooth it out. Alright, so once you've done that, remember to lube it, the inside of the plunger tube, before you attempt to insert the plunger rod and the bridge. Right, now that the inside of the plunger tube is looped, let's try and insert the bridge and the plunger rod in. Right, the bridge goes in quite easily. Make sure it's smooth. Right, then now the plunger rod. I think most people have problem with inserting the plunger rod with the O-rings. Right, so the key is actually to insert this thing at the angle like so. Right, I mean it's not really a problem. So if, say for example, some of our customers complain that they can't insert this because they have this, this O-ring hanging out like this. So just use your finger and just smooth it out. Right, until it looks like this, and then it should goes in really easily. Just, yep, no problem at all. Right, and that is the plunger tube assembly. Right, now we will be installing the internal to the right side of the shell receiver. So for this, you'll be needing the trigger spring, like this, the catch, and the catch leaf spring, the shell lifter itself, and the shell lifter spring. Right, so let's just deal with the shell lifter spring first. So this is how it will look like when it's brand new, this spring. To install this, locate this part of the shell. See this this L-shaped thing here? Yeah, this is where it goes in. So your shell lifter, right, like this, it goes into the receiver shell like this. See? Yeah. So with this thing in place, just make sure it's seated all the way in properly, like so. Right, so it don't jumps off. Now, I think this is where most people get confused because of the, how this spring looks like. So what you want to do first is actually just bend it. So you bend it over like this, right? Then you will form a shape that will look like this. Right? So when the shell lifter spring looks like this, it will be a lot easier for you to install the shell lifter. Right? So it looks like this after you bend it. Right, so the shaft lifter, I would apply a little bit of a grease on both sides because it's where the moving parts. Right, just a bit. Right, and this is how you install the shaft lifter. Right, this part with the ribs faces upwards like so, and the flat part faces downwards. Right, so grab the receiver with one of your offhand thumb. I mean, I'm left-handed, so I'm right-handed, so right, offhand holding the spring like so, and then your right hand holding the shaft lifter. Remember, this part faces downwards, so it goes in like this. So you want to be careful. The shaft lifter should be sitting onto the shaft lifter like so. Oops. Probably not a good idea to start this step first actually. But yeah, this is how you install the shaft lifter spring and also the shaft lifter itself. So it looks like this. My goodness. Alright, so once you have the shaft lifter with the shaft lifter spring installed, it will look something like this. Yeah, it's not stable because the spring is applying a constant upward pressure to the shaft lifter. So to deal with this in the easiest way I found, now take your plunger tube assembly, just take the plunger rod away first. So make your bridge in these positions so you can actually install it like this. And then carefully push the shaft lifter down, hold it there, and then push the bridge forward. Right, once it's in place, it will be relatively stable because the bridge will keep the shaft lifter in place. Right, once you've done that, you can now carefully insert the plunger rod by lifting the plunger tube just a bit upwards, like so. Right, and then you should have a relatively stable positions right now with the shaft lifter and stuff in there. Alright, next step we'll be installing the trigger. So I think one of the more common complaints on the trigger about the Firefly is the sticky trigger. Now it's because when the trigger is installed like so, right, you see that it is actually rather sticky. Now that's because this part of the trigger bar is actually rubbing against the shell on this side. This part is actually rubbing this part. Yeah, this part. So we did upgraded our trigger spring to a much stiffer one, so this actually should be resolved. But if you want an even smoother trigger pull, you can grab a sandpaper or something equivalent. You can start to sand this part down and smooth. So for me, I'll be rubbing it this way. Alright, so I've done with the standing of the trigger. So to achieve the absolute smooth trigger pull, you will want to sand this part of the trigger bar and also this part of the trigger, the downside of the trigger. So now it will be a lot smoother when you put into the shell, and then you can feel the smoothness instead of the whole trigger just sticking. So yeah, again, this step is not a necessity, but if you want a smoother trigger pull, you can do this. Remember, this part and also this part. Alright, now to install the trigger. Again, because this is a moving part, just apply a little bit of a lubrications. Then the trigger return spring, like so, is a bit loose, so be careful. Like so. So it should work smoothly. Right, so that's the trigger. Alright, now before we can proceed any further, because we will have to be installing the entire front portion of the blaster, and then the catch. Before we can install the catch, we need to install the spring. So before that, let's take a look on the left side of the shell. So this part of the shell just has one component, and that is the shell stopper. So you see this part where the hooks is at, this part, right, like this. This thing goes onto the blaster left side of the shell, like so. And just make sure it can move freely, because otherwise then you have a very rough priming. Again, because it's a moving part, again, just moderately, you don't have to apply too much because it will show on your shell, because the shell is transparent color. So like this, right? Just make sure it's smooth, right? And that's it for this side of the shell. Alright, so now before we can proceed any further, let's put the half assembled receiver aside. And then grab your barrel and then the follower assembly piece. So this is the follower, and this is the follower spring, and this is the spring that push the follower towards to the receiver to fit the shell. So to install this rubber pusher thing, you just simply push it in. So yeah, it is a bit odd of a design, but yeah, so you just slowly push it in, like so. And if it doesn't go in all the way, you can grab a mallet. You can grab a mallet and then just slowly tap it in. Yeah, that's not really tapping, isn't it? That was smashing literally. So until it goes all the way in like so. Right, and then you are pretty much done with this part. So what you want to do next is you want to test fit this follower, because this is where it will go in. This is your magazine tube, and this follower goes in like so. So you just want to make sure that yeah, it can reach all the way to this side of the barrel adapter. Right, just make sure it's smooth, because otherwise then you might have problem with the shell feeding. So this piece, obviously the barrel will be on the top, and then the magazine tube on the lower part. So this part, this little knob here, goes into the receiver corresponding hole, I guess. So just make sure that it goes in like this. Right, so it should look something like this. Right, and then now we can now install the mainspring and the catch. Just be careful because it's quite long. So yeah. Now installing the springs probably is one of the more challenging aspects of the Firefly, because there's no real good mechanism to keep it in place. But yeah, just insert the spring. Now before that, just make sure that your bridge is all the way forward, because then you have a lot of problem installing the spring. So just make sure to hold the shell lifter in, and then just push with the plunger rod slowly forward until this front part of the bridge, this part clicks like this, so then it will not jump around. Right, once this is done, you can now attempt to install the spring. Right, just do your best to keep it in place, because it's quite difficult. Now you can, yeah, actually before that, let's prep the catch first, And because the catch is also a moving part, especially this part where the trigger pushes, just apply a little bit of a loop. Alright, that should do it. Alright, and this is the catch, the leaf spring for the catch. So to install this, right, that's how it's installed. Let me show you. Right, like this. And then the catch goes in. Remember this part. The slanted part faces the forward of the front of the blaster. So it goes in like this. Right? So just make sure that it works. Just be careful holding the catch in, and then by pulling the trigger, just to make sure that it activates it. Like so. Oops. Probably want to remove the trigger's return spring first. Right. Right, that seems to be working. Alright, now we are ready to close the shell. So make sure the shell stopper piece is installed on this left side of the shell. And to install the spring is probably the hardest part of installing the Firefly. So with the spring in, you want something thin to keep the entire plunger tube assembly in place. You can either you can push down the plunger tube, or even the spring itself, like this. But you need something flat enough to do so. Right, and then grab the other side of the shell. Try and close from the back of the rear side of the blaster. So just be very careful. Right, this thing fell off, so be very careful. Right, so make sure to check the shell is fully closed, there's no gap. Right. Right, once that's done, you can now close up the shell by screwing them up. By screwing them up. By tightening the screw, I guess, yeah. Alright, we will be using this type of a screw for the main receiver. Now, because if your Firefly is brand new, there's no screw thread on the screw pot. So it will take a little bit of an effort to screw them in for the first time. Screw them in for the first time. Alright. Alright, and that is all the screw. Now, if you are going to use a power screwdriver, just make sure you do it moderately and not to over tighten it, or else you will strip the screw. You will strip the screw pots. So just make sure everything is in place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Total of 12 screws for the receivers. Just make sure everything is tightened properly. Alright, and then now we can proceed to install the front part of the blaster. Yeah, I almost forgot about the extractor. Let's deal with the extractor first. So you want to grab the extractor spring, and also the extractor screw. Right, there's only one of this type of a screw in the package, so it shouldn't be too confusing. Right, so to install the extractor, so you see this part. So this is where it sits in, like so. And then you want to grab the extractor spring, and then put in the screw. Let's do this part first. It will make the installation easier. Now again, because this nylon part is brand new, there's no thread, so it will take a little bit of effort to screw it in. Right, and that's done. Remember, do not over tighten this screw. If you over tighten it, it will actually end up bringing too much pressure, unnecessary pressure on the extractor, and this extractor may actually snap during operation. So just be careful, just moderate. Not too tight, and then it will be okay. Alright, we are almost done with assembling the Firefly Blaster. Now we just left the front side cap and the pump grip, and also the priming bar. So we can actually just go ahead and close these two pump grip together first. So to close the pump grip, we'll be using this long screw, 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, that's done. Just test fit to make sure that it fits. Right, like so. Remember, this part faces inwards because this is where the priming bar will be connected to, from here to here. Right, so it works. And then now we can proceed to install the priming bar. So you see this thinner part is where it connects to the pump grip itself. So it looks like this. And we can install the priming bar to the grip first. And for the priming bar, we'll be using this type of a screw. 2 of them, actually 4 of them. Right, just make sure it is installed properly. Right, then now we can go ahead and install this part. Alright, so just to make sure that it's working, let's just put it in one shot and try. Yep, works well. Right, now we can proceed to close up the front part of the blaster. So to do that, first, grab the follower spring and then the follower itself. Just put it in. And then insert the follower spring. And again, just to make sure, right, you should peek inside and make sure that the follower is present. Right, once you confirm that, you can now proceed to grab this piece, the front cover and the side piece. And then just close it. Right, it might take a bit of effort to fully insert this front piece. So if you need to, you can grab a rubber mallet, just lightly tap it in. Right, and once it's all the way in, it should look something like this. Right, this is a bit of a barrel protruded out. Right, once that's done, and congratulations, you have now have a assembled Firefly. So you can let's just grab some shells and just try it. Right, that's works well. And that is the assembly of the Monkee Mods Firefly Blaster. So if you have any questions regarding this blaster, assembling it, or if you have any problems when you encounter assembling this blaster, leave your questions or comment down in the comment sections. I'll get to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again soon.